One of the biggest questions people have in this life is, what's the point of it all? Why am I here? What am I meant to do? What purpose does life bring for me? And I remember I got so wrapped up on the question of what am I meant to do? What what purpose do I serve on this planet? I remember getting so wrapped up on that I let myself get consumed by the thought of like I needed to provide. I needed to be someone of use. I think a lot of people feel that way as well. I feel like a lot of people feel like they're expected to give back to humanity in some way, either through acts of kindness or through their work that they do, like they help people, like as a doctor, or maybe even like as an entertainer, they provide people with smiles. I remember thinking like I I don't really have anything to give to the world. What am I here for? One day I realized that the concept that you are meant for something, or meant for something greater, or that you even have a purpose at all. I feel like that's kind of a selfish way of viewing life in a way. It's not selfish in the sense of like you want to imagine yourself as something greater. Everyone has like main character syndrome to a degree where they think like, yeah, they're the main character, everything hinges off of decisions that they make, but at the end of the day, not to sound like one of those cringe fucking teenagers, but in my eyes, we unironically are just on a planet in space. There's no divine power that we all must submit to, or there's no end goal here. I think we're all just kind of on the planet, just living organisms, and that's really it. I've I've come to that conclusion just based off my distrust in current religious texts, and how I view most of religion in general as like a coping mechanism to deal with the harsh truths of life, primarily that being death. A lot of people don't know what happens after death because yeah, no one can tell us. No one's really coming back and reporting what's going on. And I view that as like, you know what, after we die, that's really it. We're gone. End of that. There's no ascension, there's no reincarnation, it's just moot. You're done. I think having that explanation really gives me a lot more of an identity, because instead of trying to work towards something in the afterlife or make my time on earth worth it, so that once I move on from this earth, like I feel satisfied with it, you know what I'm saying? Once I'd move on to like heaven or whatever kind of reincarnation theory thing, like I would have made this life worth it. I feel like I feel like giving myself the explanation that it's once this is done, it's done. To me at least, it makes me feel like, okay, well, I don't there's no expectations of like I need to be greater, you know? I don't need to be someone of grand stature. I can just vibe. You know what I'm saying? I can just be myself and live, and that's okay. You know? I feel like a lot of people they like the explanation of something grander after this life to give this life purpose of, okay, well, if I'm constantly a good person, I can make it into heaven. Let's just use that as a baseline example. People would devote their whole lives around Christianity in order to achieve something greater in the afterlife. Sometimes to the detriment of their own well-being, their own character, their own just life. They will tank all of that just horrible shit. Like, like people have their families torn apart, people have relationships strained based off of their belief systems, and people will still devote themselves to those belief systems in order to achieve something greater in the afterlife. To me, that doesn't make sense. To me, I would much rather enjoy my time on Earth that I have. You know, I'd much rather make my time on Earth something worth it in the sense of like I'm enjoying myself, not in the sense of like I'm leaving a legacy or I'm leaving the Earth better than I found it. I'm here and I'm gonna enjoy it. You know, if I'm gonna have to wake up every fucking day and deal with a bunch of bullshit that I don't have any control over, along with numerous fucking like mental disorders I have. Like I'm not gonna fucking make my life even more miserable. I'm just gonna enjoy what I have. I'm gonna be grateful. I'm gonna keep putting one foot in front of the other, and I'm gonna make sure that the life I'm living right now isn't one that is like lame as shit, you know? And even still, I still have a lot of regrets about my current life and my current situation, but like I'm still miles ahead of where I was like 2 years ago. So I'm making tremendous progress, and frankly, the progress has not stopped at all. What I'm trying to say with this video is that while you are here, your purpose in life, it's not to like, but you don't even have a purpose. You don't have, you're not set out for anything big. For me at least, there's nothing beyond this to work towards. You're just here. Like that's it. You're just on Earth. There's nothing deeper than that. And that's okay. It doesn't need life itself does not need to be this deep and complex fucking topic. It just is. People like to overcomplicate things. People like to try and make things sound more convoluted to make it sound more important. When things are simple, they don't seem as important. But I feel like that's just it. Life is just simple. It just is. And it shouldn't be overcomplicated. It just is. And to really find the real value in life, you should just enjoy it as much as you can. Because why not? If you're gonna have to live, why are you doing it miserably? Thank you.